What's up, gamers? We need to talk. Death Guard are the new hotness. They've got a brand new codex that's coming this weekend, and they're making a huge splash, a humongous splash in the online community. Mostly, probably the only reason they're doing this is because of Mortarion. The sheer threat of a Daemon Primarch being survivable and tough and actually getting to play the game, mostly unaided, is scaring people, and rightfully so. Now, why is Mortarion scaring so many people, and why are so many people talking about him? Well, since the last codex, he's actually had a humongous buff, which on paper doesn't seem like a lot, but then when you actually like put him on the battlefield and you see just how much has changed for him, you can really see like the real difference that he now has. Which the main one is actually that he's gained a toughness since the last codex. So before he had a 3+ armor save, a 4+ invulnerable save, a 5+ disgustingly resilient, then he had toughness 7. So toughness 7 means that a lot of your low strength weapons such as bolt guns and stuff like that were winning them on 5s, but now he's toughness 8, which means a lot of the low strength weapons which have a high rate of fire are now winning them on 6s, which is like a humongous change, because a way to deal with like a high invulnerable save, like so a 4+ invuln, you can shoot las cannons at him all day, but it'll save half of them, whereas if you shoot like high rate of fire weapon, then he's more likely to fail more saves, which means you're going to do lots more chip damage, but chip damage is harder to do when it's toughness 8. He also gained the new disgustingly resilient. So the meta is feeling like, especially like with Space Marines coming out, meta in my head is usually like, it's like Harlequins, and then it's like all the new books. It's like the rest of them just aren't in the meta yet. That's just my opinion. So when I'm talking about the meta, I'm talking about like the new codexes that are out. It feels like it's moving towards damage 2 weapons with like Space Marines, everyone having 2 wounds now, not having no one with 1 wound. So damage 2 weapons are becoming really prevalent to deal with Space Marines and to deal with like the tougher units from Necrons. Obviously, Necron Warrior Horde are only running like 1 wound, but then you have lots of other units around there with damage 2 works really well. Obviously, the new Disgustingly Resilient, which is -1 damage, and we did a whole Math Hammer video about that. It completely nullifies anything extra that you bring for bringing 2 damage. So you could bring a 1 damage weapon or pay extra points for 2 damage. Obviously, that 2 damage is just going to act the same as a 1 damage weapon, so Death Guard completely nullify any work that you've put into your list. So if you look at like things like Blood Angels, for example, they're doing really well because they can completely counter Space Marines because they are running in Carmine Swords, they're running Power Fists, etc. And they just completely just wipe through Space Marines because they're all 2 damage, whereas you go against Death Guard, now they're only 1 damage. They're still high AP, but the 1 damage makes a big difference. Mortarion also gained multiple Warlord traits, so he used to just have Arch Contaminator, and if he did just have Arch Contaminator, I feel like he wouldn't be where he is now, like nowhere near. But he actually gets 3 Warlord traits straight up, and then he can choose an extra one. So this is why I think he gets really quite oppressive. So he allows 4 units to reroll wounds with plague weapons, which is Arch Contaminator, albeit it's only in melee or if the target is within 12 inches. And that's totally fine. It doesn't affect him. He has a plague weapon, he's rerolling 1s to wound with it anyway. He's strength 16, he doesn't need Arch Contaminator himself. Only affecting core units is totally fine. Within 12 inches, I kind of spoke about this in our preview, in our like review of the book, our top 7 changes. It's a little bit rubbish because it nerfs blight launchers, so this Warlord trait really doesn't affect him, it just affects stuff near him. But however, he also has a second Warlord trait, which is Revoltingly Resilient, which is basically the old Disgustingly Resilient. So now he not only minuses 1 damage for all weapons that are coming in, he also ignores 1/3 of them with a Feel No Pain roll of a 5+. He's honestly really strong, and that makes him super duper resilient. So he's -1 damage, and he reduces all damage by 1/3 on average when he rolls his final Feel No Pain, or 5+ ignore damage roll, or whatever you want to call it. We'll call it Feel No Pain for now. That's what it used to be called back in the day. 2 editions ago. He also gained Living Plague, which is a really strong one, which essentially, whilst you're within 3 inches of Mortarion, enemy units cannot use aura abilities unless they're from psychic powers, which when you have like Space Marines, which rely on rerolls from captains or chapter masters, when you have like Sisters of Battle, they have like characters to buff the amount of attacks. You gain stuff like +1 to wound or -1 to wound from aura abilities, etc. from Harlequins. He's really, really tough. So basically you want to just shoot him. You don't want to be in combat with him unless you've got natural unless you're Mortarion yourself. If he didn't sound scary enough, the thing that really ticks him over the edge is the fact that he can choose one of the Plague Company Warlord traits, which are kind of like, let's call it the chapter tactics. They get like a unique stratagem, they get a unique Warlord trait and a unique relic. He can choose any of those that haven't already been chosen by any other characters, and it doesn't have to be the same one as the Plague Company you're running your army. So you can have 1 Plague Company and Mortarion, and then Mortarion can choose any other of the 6 Warlord traits because there's 7 in total. The two of them, which are the most important probably, is Gloaming Bloat, which is what I used in the battle report Saturday against Alex with Custodes, which essentially, the play company Warlord traits work like the contagion ability. So we haven't even spoken about the -1 toughness yet, but the fact that his contagion ability is always 9 inches unless you use a stratagem to make it longer, whereas the rest of the Death Guard army is only 1 inch. You can choose one of the Warlord traits, which is Gloaming Bloat, so within 9 inches you cannot reroll hits or wounds at all. Like no rerolls, no abilities that let you reroll, no stratagems that let you reroll, just nothing. Or you can use a stratagem to make it within 12 inches, or a psychic power called Gift of Plagues. Or you can choose the droning, which is basically all units within that range only have half movement, like any unit, which is really, really good. I prefer the no rerolls one. A lot of people are leaning towards the half movement one, but he has contagion as well. So we kind of already mentioned it with the play company Warlord trait that he chooses. That is a contagion, and it's a Death Guard wide rule that if you're within a certain range, depending what turn it is, you are -1 toughness, which is really strong because it makes all your weapons better against the enemy while you get close to them. And it means long range weapons, when you start getting units close to them, the longer range weapons get better as well. Well, Mortarion counts, essentially his contagion ability always counts as turn 4, which means it's the longest range that it can naturally get to, which is 9 inches. You can extend that range with stratagems and psychic powers to make it up to 12 inches. But that means that Mortarion is now making everything within 12 inches -1 toughness, and he's also not allowing rerolls within 12 inches, or he's halving your movement within 12 inches. So he's either really, really hard to deal with because he's in your grill and you can't reroll, or he just slows you down so you can't get away from him. And to top it all off, the final one, he retained the Miasma of Pestilence. So this is a psychic power. You choose a Death Guard unit within 18 inches. It's only warp charge 6, and you make it -1 to hit. Now, a lot of psychic powers only affect core and character units in the other codexes, whereas this one, it affects any Death Guard units, so you can still cast it on Mortarion. So you've got a toughness 8, -1 damage, 5+ feel no pain, monster who is -1 to hit, who also makes you -1 toughness, and he can turn off your rerolls within 12 inches, and he can turn off your auras within 3. As you can see, he's pretty scary. And a lot of people are like really terrified of him, and they just decided he's broken, that's it, it's all over. And you can like think about him being scary all you want, but then you can start mathing out and using Math Hammer. You can start mathing out exactly what can kill him, and that only solidifies people's concerns. This video was originally going to be like a Math Hammer video, like what can kill Morty in 1 turn. But since everyone's just spamming the same ones out at me whenever I mention Morty, so I decided against it. Well, speaking of maths, only a small percentage of you are actually subscribed to this channel. So if I were you, I would, if you got a minute, then click the subscribe button down below, and you know, click the like button. That really, really helps us out. And you know, you might have just forgotten. That's totally fine. We come in your recommended all the time anyway. But clicking subscribe really helps us out. And if you do want to see any of the videos, it'll show up in your subscription boxes. If you really, really, really want to see some videos, then you can turn on the notification. You'll get one through to your phone, which definitely won't be annoying after 3 days. But otherwise, let's talk about let's not do any more maths. No more graphs. No maths, no graphs. At the end of the day, is having an unkillable Daemon Primarch bad for the game? No, that, you know, don't turn off the video just yet. Let's have a chat. Let me tell you where I'm coming from. The thing is that a lot of 8th edition, basically, especially towards the end of it, boiled down to who can get the biggest alpha strike on turn 1 and then dominate for the rest of the game. And what I mean by alpha strike is that who could get the biggest kill, basically, or the most kills, and how much of the opponent's army could you delete in that first turn and maybe the first 2 turns to then just dominate the rest of the game and score all the objectives, because your opponent just can't bounce back from such damage. So if you took Magnus and Mortarion and a Knight, for example, can you kill all 2 of them a turn? Can you kill 1 of them a turn? Which one are you going to kill first, for example? However, Games Workshop, in my opinion, from what I've seen, it seems that they want to go against that. They don't like Alpha Strike. They like stuff dying in droves, but they don't like stuff dying completely where your opponent can't interact with you anymore. Everyone who's played Warhammer for a couple of years has had that game either to them or they've done it to someone else. Where they turn up, they set up their army, they roll to go first, they either win it or they seize the initiative afterwards, and then they shoot every weapon, every single unit on the opponent's side, and they'll have stuff left, but they've just got not enough to deal with you for the rest of the game. And you just slowly whittle down. Your opponent doesn't really score any points. You score loads of points. You either feel bad or you laugh. You either laugh at them as they can't do anything because you're psychotic, or you feel bad because you're a normal human. And that's kind of like just how the game goes. And you've definitely experienced it if you play this game for a few years. But with the changes to terrain in 9th edition, and everything in the game getting more expensive, but also getting more killy, but also more durable at the same time, we have less stuff on the board, which means it is harder to deal with big monsters like Daemon Primarchs. And Daemon Primarchs in the lore are scary. They are supposed to be scary. And Games Workshop seem to be like FAQing stuff like left, right, and centre as soon as something's completely mad. So maybe the indestructible character that costs you £100 or like £80, 85 or whatever is good. There's a great tweet from Innis, who's a good friend of mine. He's been on a couple of videos with me as well. He says, "We cannot be both mad that our expensive and coolest models in the game don't die in one turn, but also cannot bring our coolest centerpieces and watch them die in one turn. The more survivable stuff we have generally means a trend towards less first turn blowouts, and that's good for the game." That wasn't the original tweet. That was a sum up of the tweet. So what this is basically saying that is maybe that having something that is stupidly unkillable is good for the person who's using it, because normally what would happen is Mortarion would just die in one turn and then they'd be down without a quarter of their army. Now you could just say, well, that's good for the Death Guard player, but it's not good for me who's trying to play against him. And that's totally understandable. However, outside of Mortarion, the rest of the codex, in my opinion, is relatively balanced. There's nothing that's too scary in there. There's stuff that's kills stuff. There's stuff that's killing. There's stuff that's survivable. But there's nothing that's too scary. It's not like they've got like obliterators coming down and also being horrific in shooting. They haven't got any horrific shooting units that shoot from the other side of the board or deep strike in. They've got Plague Burst Crawlers, which are pretty good. They've got Blight Lords, which are pretty good. They've got Plague Marines, which are pretty good. But nothing's obnoxious, you know? You've just got Mortarion, who's just a bit obnoxious. You've also got like the Plague Surgeon, who like makes all of the stuff on the backfield, like the Plague Marines, etc., more survivable. The Math Hammer that we did in the Math Hammer video before gets completely thrown out the window when you get in a 6+ feel no pain as well. And you also have the Talisman to buff the Plague Marines and the stuff on the backfield as well. But it doesn't feel broken. It feels like a more balanced type of army. And then you put Mortarion in there, which really sends Death Guard through the roof. How do we deal with Death Guard? First off, we have to work out how we deal with Mortarion, because he's going to be in every competitive Death Guard list. If you're bringing him to casual games, then on your conscience be it. But he's just shy of a quarter of the army. He's 490 points with 25 or 24 or whatever, 24% of every Death Guard list. He'll feature in most of them. However, he'll distract more of that in your army because he is so scary. So you have to think, how can you deal with him? And one option is just pump absolutely everything you have into him over multiple turns. Okay, gamers, let's go. This week's battle report, it's like 600 points versus 500 points. It's 9 Eradicators and a Captain and a Lieutenant and versus Mortarion. This is a Spearhead detachment. This is a Supreme Command detachment. We've just Deep Strike. We're going to play Raven Guard. Okay, +1 to hit, +1 to wound against characters. He's already cast Miasma, so he's -1. Let's go. First unit, freeze to hit, re-rolling ones. Okay, freeze to wound, re-rolling ones. Okay, 2 wounds. Mortarion takes 2 fort saves. He's failed 1, d6 +2 damage. Hell yeah, that's 4 damage. It becomes 3. 3 saves. Okay, he's failed them all. You've taken 3 damage, Mortarion. It's over now. 15 wounds, boys. Next unit. Let's go. Cocked. Re-rolling ones. 3s to wound. Re-rolling ones. Okay, that's 2 wounds. 2 invulnerables. Made them both. Okay, cool. Right, last unit. You can do this. Let's go. Re-rolling ones. 3s to wound. That's 4 wounds. Oh, boys, this is tense. 4 wound, 4 ups. He's failed 1. D6 +2. Oh, he got the big 6. Big 6. So that's 8 damage, but it becomes 7 because he reduces it by 1. And he ignores another 2. That's 5 damage. He's still got 10 left. Is he degraded? No. However, this isn't always going to go well. I'll actually spend multiple turns trying to kill him, the rest of the Death Guard army is going to be encroaching towards you. They'll also be chipping away at your army, and they'll be scoring the points as well. So maybe the other option is to ignore Mortarion and kill everything else.
So Mortarion now with his 7 attacks. I'm going to do everything with silence. Strength 16 -4 D3 +3 damage.
Yeah.
So 2s to hit. No rerolls, but he does reroll wounds of 1. Okay, 6 invulnerable saves, please, Alex. Each one is D3 +3 damage, so I presume it's 1 dead.
1 bite left.
Oh, God.
No, so that was 1 dead, isn't there? So yeah, so they're all dead.
Yeah, is that 5 fails?
Yeah.
Right, okay. So yeah, that's the bite's gone. F.
Okay, maybe ignoring Mortarion is a bad idea as well, because he does wreck face, he moves relatively fast with fly, and he's hard to ignore because he's a Daemon Primarch. He's a Daemon Primarch! So maybe we need to look at army builds. Fast moving units are going to be really good against Mortarion because you can distract him with them, or what's known as kiting, or essentially you move outside of his threat range, but enough to be annoying where he's going to have to go and deal with you, and you can drag him away from your most important stuff. And every time that you move something into a position that isn't ideal for the opponent and Mortarion goes after that unit, you're dominating that game because you're controlling the battlefield without them realizing, because you want to be able to force Mortarion to go places that he doesn't want to go, or places where he's not going to get to you, get to your, you know, the fleshy goodness. I don't know what that word was. That was terrible. That wasn't in the script. But every time you can like kind of force him to go in a different direction or go somewhere which is not ideal after he does kill that unit, you're dominating that game. You're winning that game. And if you have to, you can use some throwaway units to put into him, to put near him so you can go after them. The more he's doing stuff that you want him to do rather than what your opponent wants him to do, the better. The other thing to look at as well is super resilient, high toughness or high invuln units. 2 units that I always come to mind when I think of like high invuln or high resilience is Bullgrins and Beasts of Nurgle. So these are like big blobs of units that have a really good invulnerable save. Bullgrins can get like a 3+, maybe even 2+ if I remember rightly. Beasts of Nurgle have 5+ invuln, they have 5+ feel their pain, they've got 4 wounds each. Beasts of Nurgle are probably like, obviously this would probably be in like a mirror match. They're not quite as good as Bullgrins in this regard because Mortarion does so much damage. He's got D3 +3 on his big attacks. But every time you make an invuln, that's 1 less dude dead, you know? And it's still 5+. So anything with like a really good invuln that has a lot of wounds, you can kind of put into Mortarion and tar pit him a little bit. You can't really do it with like big blobs of units because he has a sweeping blow where he gets like 21 attacks, which will just wreck face through like single wound stuff. But anything that has like multiple wounds, like 3, 4 maybe, that has an invuln as well, and maybe a feel no pain roll, they're going to be really good at like just slowing him down. And that's kind of what you need to do. You need to slow him down in any way, either whether that's distracting him, sending him in a different direction, or just putting stuff into him that he can't deal with in 1 turn. He has 7 attacks that are really nasty, I know, and not every army is going to have a unit that is super resilient that can deal with him. At the end of the day, if you do have access to it, this is something you have to start considering. And this is going to be the main problem with Death Guard, and kind of like the conclusion of this video, is that the main problem with them is they are so anti-meta that it's created a new meta. Because of Mortarion, because the normal stuff that you would have in your army can't deal with him, you can deal with him if you build specifically for killing Death Guard and Mortarion. However, those lists might struggle against other lists which are more all-comers type lists, which would be able to deal with you instead, which is the really tough thing, and that's something we're going to have to work out. But at the end of the day, what you've got to make sure you do is always play the mission. While you try and destroy some of the Death Guard units and hold off Mortarion, the rest of the army is relatively low on numbers. They have some obsec, they have a lot of minus toughness, they have a lot of buffs, etc. They can be quite resilient, but they are relatively low on numbers and units. They have Poxwalkers, which will have a couple of units off, but like Plague Marine units, if they're taking like, they're like 100 odd, 150 points with all the upgrades for 5 of them, or like 250 for 10 of them. Every unit you kill is going to make your life easier to play the mission, and that's the most important thing. To play the primary objective, hold 1, hold 2, hold 3, hold more, example. You just need to keep doing that, and the more you do that, the better. And every time you kill a Death Guard unit, they're going to have to send another unit to replace it. You know, you kill that unit on an objective, they're going to have to send something over. That might be a character that they want in a different place. It might be the Plague Surgeon, for example. They might have to hold the objective instead, or they might have to put a chaff unit out there, which will die even easier than the next time. All the while trying to control Mortarion's movements or tar pitting so he can't get further. And that's it. The more you can hold objectives, the more of the enemy models you can kill, the more enemy units you can kill, the more you're likely going to win. And there you go. There's my thoughts on how to deal with Death Guard. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you very much for watching. Let me know your thoughts. How are you going to deal with Mortarion? I imagine that as a Death Guard player, you're going to be super happy because not everyone is going to be able to deal with him. And that's probably, in my opinion, that's pretty fun. Because the more that your opponent can deal with him, the less fun the army is. But yeah, he's a little scary. He is a little scary, don't get me wrong. But there are ways around it. And yeah. The fun is working out how to do it. So thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed it, let me know. If you really liked it, like the video. If you disliked it, dislike it, and let me know why. If you haven't subscribed already, then please subscribe. But otherwise, thank you very much for watching. Have a lovely day, and hopefully I'll catch you next time. Bye-bye.